Welcome to the Floor Academy podcast. I'm your host, Kyle Hedin, owner of Illustrious Hardwoods in Mesa, Arizona. With me this week is Robert Baier, and we are going to be off to a great start today, as you can tell. We're going to be discussing taking the industry for granted. I think there's a lot of us that feel there's a lot of great opportunities and it's super easy and we just come by it naturally. Well, others would have the exact opposite approach and they think it's difficult and hard and it's not very lucrative and everybody's out to get them. And maybe that's the case. Maybe there are segments of the industry that are out to get certain other parts of it. But maybe that's not the case. Maybe there's a lack of education. Maybe there's a lack of being able to prove that you had certain things done so that you're not held liable if certain things fail. There's a lot of different parts of this industry where it essentially comes down to he said, she said, and how do we work through that? How do we actually connect and work through this on with an actual partnership where we all play together to win, as opposed to different segments of the industry look out for themselves. And even within that, you as an installer look out for just you, the retailer looks out for just them, the manufacturer looks out for just them, your sales guy looks out for just him and doesn't care about anything else. There's a lot of different places where there's discussions that happen and people have some spicy things to say. And so Robert and I are going to go poking the bear a little bit today and seeing, what we can't stir up, what conversation we can't get happening in the Floor Academy group. I'd love to see this continue. If you're watching live, feel free to leave a comment. If it's something, I don't generally pull stuff out of the comments and put them in episodes, but maybe that happens today, depending on where we're going with things. Before we get started, I have Robert introduce himself. If you're new, Floor Academy is here with new episodes every Wednesday so that you can learn how to run a more efficient business. What does that look like? Well, sometimes it's numbers. Sometimes it's about working on you and developing where you're at personally. Sometimes it's, having conversations about the industry in general and how it functions and where we need to make some changes and adjust. But overall, there's probably a golden nugget in here somewhere that's going to stand out to you. You take that, you implement it, you walk away, you build a better system or process, and you start operating your business a little bit more efficiently, effectively, more profitably, and you continue to grow and make those changes every week. There are tools for you available at flooracademypod.com in the files section. You can also check out what we're doing with our different mastermind groups if you want to get really deep into growing your business, taking them to the next level. We have an awesome accountability platform that we've built out, and I'd love to tell you more about that. You can also check out the shop, pick up a t-shirt or a hoodie. It's starting to get cold out there, and our profit is not a dirty word hoodie is pretty darn awesome. So you want to pick one of those up. And thank you to our sponsors, who we will hear from a little bit later. Make sure you go into the show notes and you click on their links, give them a visit, and make sure you are checking out what their products are, what they have to offer. We really appreciate Johns Manville and their Go Board Backer Board, the International Surface event, for their support. It's a great show every January, and IQ Power Tools with what they're doing with their dustless technology for saws and their awesome vacuum. So that all being said, that is enough out of me. We don't want to hear from me anymore. What we do want to hear is, Robert, who are you? What do you do? Why do you do it?
Hey, Kyle, thanks for having me. This is great. I think what you're doing here is amazing. So I've been an installer and, basically in the industry for 30 years now. Installer, salesman, consultant. I've done inspections. I'm a certified installer. And I think the most I learned was becoming an inspector. It's been a road that was well traveled and needed. I do it part-time now. versus the full time. But it made me learn a lot about the industry, the good and the bad. I always had a negative attitude when I was younger, until I became an inspector. And then it opened my eyes to see another side of it, and then going on to the sales floor and learning the sales side of it. So my background of 30 years is just floor covering. It's really been nothing else except this job and career. And it's been great to me. Like you said, there's a lot of money in this. You see a lot. When people were dying in 2008, I did good. I was still doing okay and pushing through. And I think most flooring installers right now, depending on what market and area you're in, I think you're doing great.
I'd agree. There's a lot of opportunity here. Look, I've seen a lot of people come and ask for work. Man, I do not know what's going on lately, folks. I'm sorry for the live streams. I'm going to have to stop it. Anyways, we will continue on. I've seen a lot of people asking for work, and there's a couple things I notice, right? And this is where it comes down to, do you understand how to run a business? There is nobody will tell you that the economy wasn't good for the past many, many years, right? We pulled out of the Great Recession, and then everyone got kind of worried around COVID, and things were good before then. Like there was money, everyone was feeling good, property values were going up, people were getting raises. COVID hits, we're all trapped inside, which means we can't spend money as readily. And then they turn on the money printing machine and hand out money, and everyone's like, man, my house is ugly because I'm stuck inside of it. And we went to town. If you were in construction, you were busy, right? You didn't have to advertise. You didn't have to do anything for your business. And the phone would ring, and you didn't have to return phone calls. You didn't have to do anything. And you were booked out 6 weeks, 3 months, whatever it is. And then towards the end of 2022, early 2023, I started seeing a lot of guys and gals start to be like, hey, anybody have something? I'm looking for work. And then it kind of, that kept going. And what I realized was all of these people are the ones that don't have systems and processes to generate work, right? They just sat there, and it was so easy to get work. You just had to exist. And so now there's less leads, but there's still work, but you don't know how to get it because you're not set up to do that. And so it is lucrative, and there is great money in it, and it is fairly recession proof, but you have to be able to have a system to generate the work, as opposed to, well, I put up my shingle, so somebody's going to come along. Like it doesn't work that way.
Well, and a lot of installers put their eggs in one basket.
Mm-hmm.
I'm loyal to you. Are you going to be loyal to me? This is where I want to be. And then the minute that basket isn't producing what you were used to, the work, what do? Do you help that basket? How do you help yours? Who did you think of first before you got in this situation? Where are you sitting, and what basket did you jump in? And can you get into another one? And I see a lot of guys make that mistake of just going to one place. And then when that dries out, they're the first one done.
Well, and there's an interesting conundrum there, right? So technically, if we wanted to get really picky about how to designate between an actual subcontractor that is receiving a 1099 and somebody that's an employee and getting a W-2, if you're getting 60% plus of your work, and I don't remember the exact number, but it's 60, 70%, there is a number out there from one source, then even if you have autonomy, you can still be considered an employee of that company. And so to go and work for a single retailer and depend on them to provide you the work, I think is a really bad thing, because the retailers like it, right? They want the guys to be loyal and the gals to be loyal. And I get it. You want to be able to know that you can keep using the same person and keep them scheduled and busy and move forward. However, it's not in my best interest to be 100% loyal to you, in my opinion. You go run your business however you want. I don't even want to work for retailers personally, all right? I go and find all my own projects. But if I was going to work for retailers, I don't want one to keep me busy. I want to have relationships with 2 or 3 or 4 and be able to bounce around, because a lot of other stuff I see is, well, sometimes I find my own project. As somebody that like these people that subcontract most of the time, they might find their own project, but where do they fit it in? Because then they go and they tell the store like, hey, I need this week off. And they're like, no, I need you. Like, they won't even let you be able to work for yourself, which you're self-employed in a subcontractor running your own business. You don't work for you. They can't make you work. But then if you go and try and work your own project, you will then be punished by that retailer and either not called or moved down the priority list. And it's really funky in that a lot of contractors, one, they don't even understand the difference between hourly employee and being a subcontractor and what it means to actually run your own business. But then there's a lot of retailers that want to play the game of, I'm going to skirt the line just enough that I can try and have the benefits of subcontractors, but almost treat them like employees. And that's a very scary
treat
place.
Them like an employee. Yeah, they want to treat them completely like an employee, not just kind of. But yeah, they do. They want all those benefits of being able to go back on them. The tax, breaks they get, and being able to 10-9 instead of, making them an employee and taking care of them. And you see that in this industry, I think, since the 90s. I know before that, shops were different. I started in the late 80s as just a helper, and really took off from there. But the guys I worked for, when they walked into a store, they were the man. That was his coffee ready for them. Their carpet was getting cut for them. The product, they didn't load their own rig. That was a joke. Now installers pull up and people are like, yeah, there's your roll, load it up, figure it out. Or maybe they'll shove it in there with a forklift. But every place before that had places for you to make those cuts. You went and started the job. They made the cuts while you were there. You came back, you picked up the cuts, you had some lunch, and you went back. The industry changed dramatically with the box stores coming about and taking advantage even more of subcontractors. Microsoft was one of the first big companies to see the benefit in having subcontractors and taking advantage of it. And the flooring industry followed it better than any other industry did, with Microsoft running with it. And I think it's got to come back. The pendulum's got to change and come back, or installers have got to do something to help themselves or be better businessmen. And that's one thing. You can get trained to lay flooring by a good person or whatever, but are they teaching you the business end? Are they good at their business end? Is their wife running their books, or are they running it and really teaching you how to do it? When I was younger, luckily I had went to college. And I had went to college in business. So when I came out, I seen, hey, these guys don't know how to do books. They're giving bills to customers on a napkin in the truck and just wanting a $200 bill,
Yeah.
And I was like, shoot, I can go get this work and get these contracts and then pay these guys and make a little off of them, even though they know more than me and they're better than me. And so that's kind of how I ran with it. But I did get into some tax trouble. I thought I knew everything. I was a little crazy, and all of a sudden I started getting these 1099s out of everywhere and everybody, thing I wasn't expecting. And so when I was making that $1,000 on a job, I didn't consider that 4 of that went to Uncle Sam and the state that I was living in. Someone else wanted a piece of that, and you better be ready to pay it. I was going to try and get away with as little as possible, buy a new truck all the time, have all these write-offs. Well, then I go get a home loan, my debt-to-income ratio. They're like, you're in debt. I'm like, no, I'm not. I make more than you by far. And they're like, yeah, but that's not how it looks on paper. Can you pay cash? And then my down payment on my first house had to be $30,000. And so there's both of that spectrum of this trade. You've got to learn how to do it, but you've also got to learn how to run the business, because stores aren't going to help you out. They're just not. That's not what they're about anymore.
I don't want to say, I will give stores the benefit of the doubt. Let's not say stores won't help you out. That there are very few that want a great partnership. There are stores that I know will support their team and they want to do it right and whatnot. I love that you brought up that the subcontractor model like really took hold here, and that it used to be very different. And that's what I've kind of seen and taken away, is that there used to be a lot of in-house crews, and they used to be treated very well, like you said, and then it kind of fell off. And it's interesting to hear that it's kind of with the advent of the box stores getting involved, and I don't blame them. Again, this industry is lucrative, and they saw that and wanted to get in on it. But I think that's where the problem lies, is that with the subcontractor model, everyone has had the wool pulled over their eyes of like, you're better off being your own boss. You're going to make so much more money if you go do your own thing. They're not educated enough to. We're not educated enough to. Look, I had to learn. That's why this show's even here. Everyone knows that if they've listened for any amount of time, is like, I need to learn how to run a business. Here I am trying to learn how to run a business. And so if your thought process is, I'm just an installer and I'm going to show up and I'm just going to do this, like, how many of these guys and gals are doing it as a sole proprietor and don't even have an LLC? So now everything's at risk if somebody gets hurt in a home and somebody can come after their personal property and it's not even protected. They're not managing the funds right? They're being told by their accountant that they should buy a new truck every year, like you were kind of doing, and they have no income on paper. They're not paying, maybe they're skirting paying taxes. And so even if Social Security ends up working out and existing by the time they can retire, they've never reported any income, so they can't even get any of that. And then they don't have any savings because they weren't charging enough and setting aside money for retirement. It's the thing to me, though, is that I've started thinking about recently with retailers is, if you ask them, a majority will say that installation is their biggest liability. But then you hand off your biggest liability as an outsourced commodity item? That doesn't make sense to me. Why would you not want employees to handle that so that you have control to mitigate risk and control that liability as much as possible? And a lot of people are going to come along and be like, you can't make enough as an employee. I call bullshit.
Absolutely.
I think there's tons of money.
Electricians do it. Plumbers do it.
Mm-hmm.
Why can other fields or trades do it? But yet flooring, I try to use the word mechanic, because I think sometimes that makes the customer, when you do say the word installer, it downplays the quality or the grade. Just that one word, changing it to mechanic. You can change how a customer looks at this, or a store owner. And yeah, it's got to make sense at the end of the year to have guys as an employee, because you could use them in other benefits. Maybe there isn't an install that day. Maybe you did get slow. Maybe prices aren't set right, or something's going on. And we know in this trade, you have your up months and your down months. I used to take January and February off. When I met my wife that I'm with now, she was like, I was skiing every weekend. I was doing stuff. And she's like, what are you doing? I'm like, well, I saved up money all year round. I give the other work to the other guys. And I do the little drop bedrooms. I go do the little stuff. But yeah, I enjoy myself. But I saved up the money. But it took me years to learn to do that.
Yeah.
So you can't, I know there's money, definitely. And I would need a store to prove to me or show me that they've tried it and can't make the numbers work, like we had discussed earlier. It just doesn't make sense. And then you have a better future. You've got something there. Now, maybe you're not making that big money right up front like you want, or like your uncle did, and you don't get to go buy that, Chevelle cash right off like you wanted. Okay, but at the end of the day, yeah, you do have Social Security. You probably have a retirement. You can go get a home loan much easier. If you're bad with $1, you're bad with $10. We all know that. Yes. It don't matter. There's people that win the lottery all the time and they're broke within a certain amount of time. That
Yes.
happens. But if you want someone to teach you that. So whoever's teaching you this trade should be hopefully teaching that if they know it. Or maybe that's what they're shining in your eyes. You get this
Well,
big fat paycheck every other Friday and it's great.
again, all the more reason to be an employee, though, right? If you can't handle money, like being an employee might be the best thing for you because at least your taxes are taken care of.
Yes.
And so
Yeah. Yeah.
you're protected from some. You're sheltered a little bit on some fronts, right? Your tools are going to be provided. Your truck's going to be provided. Like there's a lot of things that are going to be happening for you that take a lot of the stuff of being a business owner out of it. You just have to show up and go do what you're really good at. You just have to go be the craftsperson, which is great. And that's where I don't understand why, like right now, if a store is saying like, hey, our installers aren't doing it right, it's hard to find really good quality help. If you have employees, you can make them go get certifications, right? How serious they take it, that's on you. Like you got to build the culture to where you have people actually appreciating what they want to do and wanting to better themselves and whatnot. But again, you have more control over it than you do now.
We had discussed trainings, and you brought up a good point a couple of weeks ago when we talked that I'd overlooked because I kind of thought the same thing. Reps will come to those stores. They want you to sell their product. And so they're going to come to that store and they're going to do a free training for the installer.
Yep.
That's a free training to everyone in the store. So if you're an employee now if you're a subcontractor, you want to be out laying floors that day. You don't want to go to that 2 or 3 hour class in the warehouse or whatever. But if you were getting paid by the hour, you'd absolutely go stand in that shop and listen to that person tell you, this is how we want you to use our self-leveler. This is how our floor patch works. This is how the cool glide system can work. You would be more apt to do that because you're still getting paid. You're getting free training just like the salespeople, but you're probably taking it more serious than a salesperson.
I would hope so. I mean, look, I know there's a bunch of people that don't care what they're taught and they don't want to change, but you know what? That person's probably not going to fit in with my company culture and they're not going to last very long. That guy can go out on his own and he can go try and scrounge up his own work and run his own business. I don't want to support that. And he's probably not going to last very long because he's doing it wrong and his projects aren't going to last long term. He's going to get burned and then we move on, right? So there's a better way to create people. And I don't care, like if you start off as an employee and you're kind of taught how to do this and you're given a very good set of hand skills and then you're taught the financial side and you're asking questions and you want to learn and you want to go out on your own. This came up in last week's episode. Good. You don't scare me. Because the work that I was feeding you is going to be the work that you're going to go pick up on the outside. And as long as you're doing a great job, you are raising the bar in our area. And that's not competition. That's making the industry better for everybody. And so there's a term I learned when I was in my BNI group. There was a talk that this lady gave. She called it co-opetition. And she was like a graphic designer and she really liked one aspect and she found somebody that enjoyed the aspect she very much disliked. And so when they got bigger projects that weren't in the thing that they each liked and it involved the other one, they would just ship it off to the other person and they would do it. So it was win-win. They got to keep doing what they liked, but they were able to take on bigger projects that involved things that they didn't like. They weren't competing against each other. They were helping each other grow better businesses together and taking overflow that neither one wanted for themselves. It makes sense, right? And so let's say you live in New York and you get some kind of high rise and you're a sand and finish guy. You can't take on that whole high rise yourself. You're seriously telling me that the dude that you trained and left and went out on his own, you don't want to call him up because you can trust him and know that he has good hand skills and bring him in and be able to take on that job and everybody wins? Get out of here. I'd be calling up like 5 or 6 dudes and being like, I got this. Like, we are going to murder this thing, right? Like, I will find a way to do it if I don't have an in-house team to do it. But there's too much in this industry. I see too many people only out for themselves. and it
Greed.
has to end.
Greed is terrible in this industry. That is one thing that is terrible, is the greed, because the money is really there and it can be dispersed. You're right. I had guys that I trained that I would have to tell them, all right, it's time. I'm not picking you up tomorrow. You're not meeting me on a job. Go talk to so and so at the store and let him know you're on your own. You've got it. The time is right. I'm done. And I think, an hourly deal that we were talking about too would get more young guys in the industry, because you're going to go through some, but a lot of old carpet layers, a lot of guys, like you hit a certain point. Well, is the money worth bringing that kid on? Because if he gets hurt, what if he's packing a roll and something happens? Times have changed. Things have changed.
Mm-hmm.
And, back in the day when I started, if you got hurt, you just shut up. You put some super glue on it or, whatever, and you moved on. Now, it isn't that way. And that's just, people want to go see a doctor. They want to make sure they're okay, which health is important. I believe in it and stuff. But it scares me to death to take a kid out if I don't have everything in order, because I could lose my house. And not only mine, the homeowner. You're putting the homeowner at risk if he gets hurt on their property, even though you're subcontractors and something goes wrong. They can still be liable. Well, how great is that for customer service? How much work are you going to get out after Mrs. Smith tells everybody on Facebook that she has had to pay out because you didn't have all the right stuff and your employee, your helper got hurt? And those things happen, and it's few, but people don't understand. It only takes a little bit before this becomes a bigger thing, and seeing it. And depending on what kind of market you're in, like I'm up north Idaho, very small market. Most of ours is your reputation. People have to know you and want to use you again, and you're the last person at that house. So even if the salesman screwed something up, you can fix it as an installer and you can get more work out of it. And you can help that store get another customer if you make that final product. So why don't the stores appreciate the guys more? Where is that? And I see that. I see that a ton.
Speaking of appreciation, that part's crazy to me as well, is no one spends more time with that client than the installers.
Yeah, you're a guest in their home all day, maybe a couple days.
Could be 2 weeks.
A big deal.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like, how long did the salesperson have into this person, right? They met him at the store. They brought out some samples. They measured. Maybe a couple phone calls. It's probably, even on a larger project, it's probably under 8 hours. But if it's a larger project, that installation team could be there for like 2 weeks, 8 hours a day. So that is multiple people in a home, 8 hours a day. And you're not having conversations with the installer about how important it is to build your brand. Again, why wouldn't you want them in-house so that you can control the processes in place to make that experience top notch? Because you can't tell me what to do. The minute you handed me that work order, I get to go do whatever I want. And yes, if I want more work,
I just to her house.
I could burn it down, right? Exactly.
Yes,
now,
exactly.
But granted, if I want more work, I'm going to have to play by a simple set of rules, and I need to be respectful of the hand that feeds me and make sure that I do an adequate job. But why not, again, have some control and be able to say, you need to do X, Y, and Z before you show up. You need to handle the way it's done throughout the day. Because I see a lot of these subcontracting crews, man, boxes start getting open when they're doing like LVP, and there's a box tossed to the right, to the left, behind me. Pretty soon, this whole room is overtaken by boxes that are just everywhere. There's tools all over the place. There's footprints everywhere. Can we stay organized? Like, it doesn't take any more time to throw the box to the left or the right than it does to open it and set it in a pile and make a really nice stack. And at the end of the day, those all get picked up. They go out to the truck with me. They go in the dumpster on the way home, and we're good, right? The job site stays clean. Tools are all in a place. They're packed in a corner. They stay organized. We don't put them on their countertops. Like, all of these little things you can start nitpicking and controlling and create a better experience, as opposed to, here's your work order. Go do whatever madness it is that you've created to do, go do it.
Yeah. Yeah, and people don't know the value of that. They need to stop and think. And I always train guys like that. Think about, how do you want someone to come into your mom's house? How do you want someone to come into your house? And I'll tell it to customers. I don't want someone else moving my TV. That's mine.
Mm-hmm.
There's certain things that are mine. And so to customers, when I'm qualifying them or I'm going over what we're going to do in this job, I'm like, you really want me to go through your wife's, panties? Think about
Yeah.
this. Why can't you have that moved when I get here? It's not that much work. Or pay me for it, which is fine. But really, is that my job to come in and do that? And, salespeople don't always go over that. You get your good salespeople and your bad, just like anything. But as an installer and a business owner, and how I would like to do it on the salesman's end, I like going to my customer's house. I like meeting them. I got a bunch of knowledge in installs, so I'm pretty good at it. But if I didn't, why would I not have the installer go out there and bid that job? I can stay at the store and get another customer while he goes and does that measure.
Mm-hmm.
And if he's good enough, he's going to help me capture that sale. He's going to be the one that gets that, and he goes over all that. He can tell him, look, I don't want to move your disgusting clothes. I'm not, hopefully in a better manner, but to the point of, I don't move your personal belongings. I'll move this bed, or this is an electrical bed or a log bed. We really shouldn't be disassembling it. The responsibility gets so high on the installers and store owners and salespeople. You see this every day. Yeah, they will do that. We can do that. We promise that. Like if you go to a box store or some of these other stores, everything's free. Your whole install is free, and they're going to do everything.
Yeah.
Let me tell you, as a district manager for a box store for years, that's not what happens. The installer leaves. He shows up and nothing's ready. He walks out, and it's reschedule when you can. And then that's when everybody starts backpedaling and telling Mrs. Smith, well, you didn't read your fine print. You didn't go. Who the hell reads fine print? Really, let's be honest. Very few of us
Yes.
do. I know I'm guilty of it as hell.
Me too.
And you also forget things. So you go over that with me, and it's 6 weeks later, and someone shows up to do it. I can give you an example. I bought a truck, and the guy told me, in a month, this truck is due for an update on the stereo. You have to bring it in. He said, usually you could just do it from the Wi-Fi from your house and this and that. He's like, but this one, you have to bring it back. Don't forget. So I get in my truck. A month goes by, maybe a month and a week. My stereo won't work. My GPS won't work. Now, I'm furious. I'm hot. I just paid $40,000 for this truck. I call him up, and he's like, oh, are you calling to schedule that? And I'm like, yeah, that's what I'm doing. Not at all. I was ready for a fight. I was going to scream. I was mad I'd bought this truck, and it wasn't working.
Well,
so First words out of his mouth.
Let's build that out, though, right? Why couldn't they have put into your CRM or in their CRM to automatically send you an email to schedule that? Or why didn't they schedule the service and have you put it on your calendar at the time of sale, knowing that it was a month away?
I actually think they had offered that, and I was like, well, I don't know what my schedule will be like. I'll bring it in. I did one of those, which we do.
But even with on the flooring side, why don't you have it built in to send out a reminder that furniture needs to be moved if you don't move furniture, which I don't think any retail shop should. And we can get in and have the debate of we need to create the least amount of friction as possible and all of that. And that's one reason why I run my own show. I don't want to move furniture. I don't care if it creates friction. I'm not doing it. I don't want the liability. I'm not touching grandma's hutch from 1890 that is a family heirloom, and I scratch it and I can't do anything to replace it. I don't want it. And I don't care about anything else in the house. Like you said, right? I don't want to go and be touching Mrs. Smith's unmentionables and getting into whatever conversation that's going to create, because I couldn't move the furniture without emptying the drawers or something like that, right? And then, why are you touching my stuff? Well, you didn't move it. Like, this is what I had to do. And so I just don't want to create those issues. I'm happy to recommend a moving company.
And everywhere I've seen is, we don't make half of what a furniture mover makes. Like plumbers.
That's my other issue.
I work hand in hand with a plumber. This guy and we work hand in hand. $325 is what he charges to go pull a toilet and come back the same day later on and resets it.
Mm-hmm.
The stores are like $75. I'm like, well,
Some of them are less. I know there's a local store in my area that paid the last time I saw the extra sheet, they were $25 to pull and reset a toilet, and you had to provide the wax ring.
and
Are you kidding
at
me?
least in my market, those
That's
are
$6
$16 now. At a box store, let alone if you go to a good hardware store.
Correct.
Yeah, you basically spend it in gas to go pick it up and buy that supply line, and half of them need new supply lines.
We won't even get into the liability issue that, like, your general liability insurance as a flooring installer probably doesn't cover you even touching toilets, and you take that risk on for yourself, and you're going to take it on for $20. You're going to risk destroying an entire floor for $20. Get out of here. Yeah. Let alone that thing isn't clean. I ain't touching it. Yeah. I mean, I touch them, but I'm not 300 and whatever like your plumber is, but it's 150 to pull and reset it, and I feel comfortable at that. I got to interrupt this real quick, and then we'll get right back into this. Zero entry, curbless, ADA compliant. All these words describe a shower pan style that is both luxurious and accessible for every person. GoBoard Point Drain was designed with this in mind. The low-profile features and adjustable riser perfectly enable a zero-entry installation. Whether you install mud pans or use GoBoard wedges, the integrated membrane keeps water securely flowing in the right direction, down the drain. Visit www.jm.com/GoBoard to discover the possibilities. Thank you, Johns Manville, for your support. We appreciate it. All right, Robert. So, I mean, we're on this topic, right? Like, again, if you had employees, you can add in different insurance coverages. You could charge more. Again, like, even on the furniture side, you know, what is it? Add 50 cents a square foot, a quarter, 50 cents a square foot, and then you got to move the furniture, or it's like $65 a room. And then some companies are just, they won't even pay extras for like larger items and stuff. Again, like a three-piece like entertainment center that's 8 feet tall. I'm not moving that in and out quickly. These things, like, I lose money by doing it. And I think I don't know that a lot of people realize that. I personally, this is me, and I think a lot of people would agree with this, but like, as a business owner, especially within the flooring industry, you can't make money at less than $100 per hour. You cannot be profitable and cover overhead expenses, save for retirement, pay yourself, keep the company going, all that stuff for less than $100 an hour. So I'm going to walk into
some markets you could go as low as 75, but that would be it. You would honestly, that would be your lowest, but some markets would be even higher than 100. But average throughout the United States, I would say you're right, 100%.
And so I'm going to go into a bedroom, and there's going to be a dresser, a nightstand, and a bed. Let's say it's the perfect ideal setup. Okay, we'll throw in the side table with a lamp on it. Okay, so we have 4 pieces of furniture to move. I've got to pull them out, and I've got to put it back. Is that going to take me an hour? Maybe. Depends on the bed, really. So maybe it's 30 minutes to an hour. So is $60 okay? Could be. But then where did that slow me down? Like, I don't know. I don't know that it's high enough all the time.
Well, and it's not only your time, right? So,
the liability, too.
Let's look at the liability scenario of you not assembling that bed correctly and something happening that night when they go into bed or any scenario. You don't know. And granted, we're pretty handy guys, right? We're working with our hands every day. We all think really well. But there are times and things that could absolutely happen liability-wise. You know, Mr. Smith, maybe he's 6'6" and 240 pounds. Mrs. Smith, 120. You put that bed together wrong. She's laying in there. He jumps on that other side, and you've just thrown her off that bed. Now, who's to say how bad she's hurt? Where does that go? And what's your insurance company going to tell you? They're going to tell you you're a flooring mechanic or we insure you for the product you work with at hand,
Yeah.
which is what were you doing moving that furniture? You're
Mm-hmm.
not a furniture moving company. And a lot of guys don't see this happen. I've seen it happen a lot with plumbing, not other
Yeah.
scenarios, but I have. I know a guy that literally pulled a fridge out 4 feet. He did everything right. He covered his planks. He rolled it out beautifully, but the water line ran 16 feet under their floor where it connected, like in the crawl space or in the basement, way back by this other room. Well, so it slowly started leaking. It took 2 weeks, and that ceiling fell in. It cost him $30,000 to redo that basement. You know, and he had no idea. He didn't disconnect it. He didn't touch it. What he did is he rolled it out, but it broke way back there, not right behind it, not anything else. And, you know, most of the time an insurance company, had that customer moved it, they would have told him, well, that was poor maintenance on your part. We're giving you 15 grand, get it done. I work with a lot of insurance companies.
Yeah.
I know how they work as well.
Yeah. There's so many things, right? I've dented a couple of, I scratched a refrigerator door, and I think I dented another one that's came up in last week's episode too. It's funny that we're kind of like focused on this part of it, but like cost me a couple $100. Now, granted, I was charging enough to move appliances that over time, like, yeah, that money was there and it was profitable, and it wasn't a big deal to like, there was money in each project that I could just, oh, the door's $400. Okay, cool. I'll buy it, come out, install it myself and put it on. But what if I didn't have to deal with it? How much easier would my life be not doing it? And then let's not even get into gas stoves. You want to be the guy that touches the gas stove and now that family is, you know, turning it on at night and it blows up the entire house? Jesus, I don't even want, like, I don't even want to imagine that scenario.
Carbon monoxide don't just do something worse than an explosion. Explosion is right here, but that carbon monoxide would be a huge thing. And you don't know if they've got good detectors in their home. You don't know any of that stuff. You're a guest. You're just over there too. And yeah, and you're doing all this stuff. How many times would they ask a guest to move their stove and fridge and their stuff? And that's how I try to get customers to look at it. I'm a guest in your home. I'm going to respect you. I'm going to do this service for you. But really, you want me to do that stuff for you? And I know there's great stuff that now that, you know, you can slide under them. I've got an installer. He's got the little backpack and it hovers the stuff around. But he also tells me, this thing costs me a lot of money. I want $100 every time I kick it on. And I don't blame him at all. So I do. I make sure he gets the money, but I have more confidence in it than when I'm rolling it around. But still, it's still not a liability he should be taking on as a flooring installer. He's doing floors.
Yep.
Nothing else.
I want to go a little bit of a different direction right now. We'll stay kind of in the same vein, but we'll go a little bit of a different direction because I have a thought on something that I'm going to try and write an article on in the future. My experience, at least, so I've had 2 claims, and you've done inspections, you've been an installer, so you've probably had this happen. I've had 3 claims with LVP in my life. 2 of them have been with the same distributor, and the third was with a different one. The ones that were with the same distributor, they're local to me, great relationship. Called them up, said that there was a sheen issue with the LVP. They stepped up, they handled it. I ripped everything out, boxed it up, brought it back, got new stuff, went back, installed it. They paid me for the tear out, the time to drive back and forth, load it all up, and to install it again. They gave me my rates. Didn't question it, didn't ask it, no problem. The other company threw me under the bus, didn't do anything for me, said that I didn't have any clue what I was doing as an installer. Their product was perfect. There's no issues with it. And I had to buy product out of my pocket to finish the project and make it right. I also ended up having to glue down a click style floor because the locks weren't engaging properly. So now there's this floor that's glued down, and it was horrendous. So there's companies that step up and handle it right. And then there's companies that try and like avoid everything and blame you for installation issues. And then I also know that there's companies that like won't pay out at great rates. And I'll use the carpet industry. I hear of it more prevalent there, where like the manufacturers are trying to pay rates that are just unheard of. like super low, as opposed to what it's being paid out at from the retailer or like an installer owner operator level. And how can we do that? Like if the cost is the cost, like how can you not pay me what I already went and charged? I don't get it, right? It doesn't make sense to me. And then we can go down the vein of, why is installing carpet in an apartment complex any different than installing carpet in a new build or remodel home? And why does it pay so much less? Like, what is, like, how does this all work? It does, like, doesn't make sense to me. The work is the work. If I'm going to go out, I need to get paid, because the other part of this becomes, going back with retailers, maybe you're getting $8 a yard for carpet. But if you got to go install 800 yard or 100 yards a day by yourself, like, that's a tall order. But if I'm getting paid $2 a square foot for LVP, I only have to go and do 400 square feet, which is far easier than 100 yards of carpet. But I still went out for the same amount of time.
Yeah.
I probably used the same amount of tools. Like, what is going on here? Like, it doesn't work. And then everyone complains they can't find good carpet installers. It's because it doesn't pay. Well, I can't charge more. What do you mean you can't charge more? The cost is the cost.
One of the big things that people don't want to talk about is the way carpet changed. Carpet changed dramatically in the early 2000s. People don't talk about that. So that's one of the big key things with carpet. The way the manufacturers make it, the speed they make their machines at, the science behind it with more sand and latex than the old backings. Then they started making everyone was used to Berber, which is not really what it is. It's a looped product. Berber's actually colors in the yarns. But everybody knows that it's Berber. Mm-hmm. So everyone knew to row cut Berber. But they didn't know that you row cut every carpet. All carpet. Plush, Frisé, it doesn't matter. It all has a row. You should row cut it with a pin and needle, or however you prefer to row it. I've got several different methods that I use and have learned. But carpet took a big change, and people, that no one sees that. No one realizes it. So carpet has its own little issues with installs. But as far as your first, what you brought up, we'll work our way back to everything. What the mills do when you're an inspector is they tell you, we want you to be honest. We want you, if we have a problem with our product, we want to know. We want to follow the run numbers. They have different ways of tracking this. Mm-hmm. But what they also want you to do is make sure that every little bit of that install is perfect. No, not one butt joint too close, not one gap along the wall. No baseboard too tight, no door undercut too tight. You got to nitpick that if you're going to say there was a problem with the product.
Yes.
Most of them are okay with going, yeah, faulty product happens. We're making this stuff by the miles, by the thousands of square feet. They're not making one little box, just like they're not making carpet for Mrs. Smith's house. They're making 5 miles of that one carpet, that one color, and it's going to change colors. There's things that are going to happen. But what they do is, if you can just go in there and you can go, yeah, the installer did this, whether it was a good product or bad product, it doesn't matter. It's easier to put it back on him or the retailer, right? But if you want to prove, and you can prove that it was their product, they're more than happy to replace that product. They're like, yeah, we want to stand behind it. That's what it is. And we made enough money. If we sell 5 jobs and 1 job goes bad, mm-hmm. we made 5 times enough that one job costs us nothing. It's not even enough that they can do a tax write-off on it, right? But yes, if they have to pay that installer, now you're starting to dig into their bottom line. You're starting to get into that pocket. And that's what they don't want. They don't want that. They actually either want the retailer to take that responsibility or the installer, of course. But that is generally what you're doing is you can prove a product's bad. As an inspector, I was shocked to find out that in, I would say, 60% of all my inspections, I found out that it was 2 things. It was either product and install, or it was install and environment related.
Mm-hmm. Which is install related.
Yes, yeah, and one is your customer not maintaining, taking care of it right, and the other is yeah, there was some bad install, and usually on hard surface, people don't realize like this whole thing about expansion gaps. That's
Mm-hmm.
huge in a laminate floor, depending on what market you're into. So, like my market, we're 100 degrees in the summer, we're below zero in the winter. Our houses are doing this
Yep.
up to 2 inches a year. Your house will expand and contract. So to have that expansion joint is very important with laminate, wood floors, engineered floors, because they're moving, the
Mm-hmm.
house is moving. LVP, they say it doesn't move, right? There are very little to
Right.
none. It don't need the acclimation time, blah, 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 blah. Just as long as you don't shock it, take it from one floor, one temperature to an extreme another. Well, you still have the movement of the house, so we leave that expansion joint. Well,
Yes.
every inspection I see or every little comment I see is, I'm so mad right now at this company because the rep from the company, not an inspector, they'll say the inspector from the company.
Yeah.
He's a rep. He's a local rep. Everybody knows him or her, whoever. And he went out there and said expansion joint was right. Okay, you can't go out and say that. That won't hold up in the court. If you go in front of a judge and someone says the expansion jack it wasn't there, well, wait, where's your evidence? Where's your photos for one? And what science behind it determines. So now, as you guys, I don't know if everybody's been watching, but I watched really. In the last 10 years, the expansion joint on every LVP product gets bigger, which is weird for a product that does not expand and contract anything like a laminate and a wood.
Yeah.
But wood and laminate is staying the same. But all of a sudden, LVP, I remember when LVP first came out, you could be a half inch in 10 feet off on the floor before it was at a flat or levelness. Now, what is it?
It's 3/16, if not more.
Yeah, in 6 feet.
Well,
it's completely changing.
I think a lot of this comes down to as well, like, okay, this is where we can get into education issues, okay? I think that a lot of times installers are thrown under the bus, and look, manufacturers spend too much money on floors to create products that are going to fail. I will give them that, okay? They have great R&D teams. They spend a ton of money. They invest millions into these products before they launch them. It's going to most likely be installation related, especially with the fact that much of the labor force is super undereducated on how to properly use products. But when it's a floor that's failed and it's buckling in room A, and you find that the baseboards are pinched in room C on the other side of the house, that's not the cause. And
No.
you getting out of the claim for that reason, or you blame that the like joint spacing is off, right? I didn't follow and have them separated by 8 inches, and there's two over here that are like 2.5 inches apart, and then I have 3 pieces under 6 inches at my row ends. That's not why it's buckling. It's not.
No.
And it's bullshit. And so
100%.
that's the problem. Is it's that kind of stuff that drives me nuts when it gets blamed on installation and it's not. Like, don't get out of it. If something's wrong, fix it and then pay me for it. Like, let's all be on the up and up. Again, if you've invested millions into this product, I don't see how on a manufacturing level you didn't buy in. And I hear rates as low as like it's actually only 1 to 2% failure rate total, even with all the claims that LVP gets and stuff. At least for a product I know here in town. Like, I've talked with the distributor and I know that it's like less than 1% failure rate. There's money to pay. And they did. They did pay me, right? And I'm super fortunate with that. But again, we go to look at the bigger major companies that are out there that these retailers are constantly complaining about LVP sucking from. The product doesn't suck. Your installers suck. I'm sorry. That's the end of story. Your installers are not educated enough to deal with the product, and they're costing you money. But if it is the actual product, there's money to pay out, and the manufacturers need to step up and do what's right and stop I don't care that you're owned by a bunch of shareholders at this point and that you have to report to the board and talk about profits and stuff. Do what's right by the people that are doing the work and making it successful. I don't care how much product you produce, and I don't care how much product a retailer can sell. It takes all of us. You have to, the manufacturer has to make it, the retailer has to sell it, and if we're out there installing it, we have to install it, and we make it actually function in the house. And Mrs. Smith gets a home.
What we started with this was talking about installers. So if installers are 90% of everybody's problem, retailer, manufacturers, 90% of the problem is us, then why aren't they doing something more about it? Why aren't they demanding that before you touch my product, you're certified, you've went to training, you have this many years of experience doing this? Or if you touch my product, there's not one warranty on it, and I'm walking away and it goes on to the store owner.
Yeah.
Why is that not happening? And that would change store owners' attitudes and everyone's.
Where
are the mills at on that?
Well, you hang out online, so you know Roland Thompson, correct?
Yeah.
Okay, so in his office, it is covered with certifications.
Yes.
From all kinds of manufacturers. So they used to. What gives? It's too expensive for you now?
Yeah, I got a lot when I was younger. It became harder the older I got.
I think it would be cheaper to have your people out educating us than it is to be sending your people out dealing with all these claims and having a bunch of pissed off people that your product sucks. Because if we're not selling your product, you're not making any money. I'm with you. It just doesn't make sense. And then, yes, folks, like, you need to go learn how to install. You're going to, people are, I don't need to get a certification. I know everything. Do you? Do you? Do you actually know what you're doing? When was the last time you read the instructions? And do you read the instructions to everything or just one and then assume they're all the same? Because they change over time, right? And if you don't, how many of you actually understand the basic science of how moisture vapor moves through concrete? Have you got that education, or do you just, put your meter on it and hope for the best? Do you even own I don't own a rapid RH system, right? But I use my Tramex meter, which isn't industry approved for most stuff, but the Tramex meter is going to identify if there is something that I need to go above and beyond and get an in situ probe and drill into the concrete 40% of the depth if it's only exposed on top, and put in the probe and find out what the internal, relative humidity of the concrete is, so that I can see if I have to actually put like a moisture mitigation system down. Whatever it is, like, do you actually understand the science?
That part to me is why that's even something we're dealing with now, with all the liquid moisture barriers that we could just use on every job. To me, it's like, why wouldn't you? That's what I've been doing it for 9 years. You got concrete floor, you're looking at this much extra, I'm going to roll this on, and when I get done with the south side of the house, the north side's ready, I can start your install. Or some of them now, there are some that take 24 hours, but there's a lot of them now. You can start doing right away if you're not gluing it down. If it's a floating floor, why not do it to just do better customer service? It's not that hard of an upsell for a store or anyone else, and you're doing the right thing, and we don't have to worry about that. We can eliminate that if something happens.
The best thing about that is, here's the thing. Again, this is where the education comes in. A moisture test is a snapshot in time. That means at that exact date, at that exact time, that's what it was reading. It doesn't give you any history or guarantee that before that it was any different, and that after that it's going to be any different. What I see in Phoenix, where it's so dry and we don't have any moisture in our slabs, okay, then why do I constantly see failures out here? Because people didn't put plastic down. There's moisture, it moves. A lot of it has to do with what happened was we didn't get any good monsoon season here. We didn't get like our good rainy season for a couple years. We finally got one. All this water was pooling up against the side of houses because they don't do proper drainage all the time from the new builders. And so all that water absorbed into the slab, and it only had one place to go, and it was covered by LVP that didn't have plastic over it or a roll-on mitigation system. And it all started cupping and failing. And then everyone was like, oh my God, what happened? Well, it wasn't taken care of right. Had you spent the extra, the plastic costs 7 cents a square foot at Home Depot right now. If you go buy the 1,000 square foot roll, and you could sell it for 25 cents a square foot, so you're going to make money. A roll-on system isn't much more.
No, and
it's cheap insurance. Why wouldn't you want to take care of Mrs. Smith? Again, you are selling her a product, and you want to give her the best warranty possible. Why don't we just do what's right and charge a little bit more to guarantee a better end result? I'm not trying to worry about in the future, right? Like, I don't even want to think about it. I want to know that I have some kind of locked in, guaranteed result. And again, the people out there aren't getting educated enough to even understand what they're doing.
Don't you want to sleep at night? To me, I know I did some stuff when I was younger. I owe hundreds of people a new install for cutting corners and the wrong things and listening to the store tell me just to do this. It took me a long time to finally go, look, if you want me, this is what it costs. These are the days I'll give you. You're not going to book me this many days out. You'll call me. I made myself more valuable is what I did through the years. Yes. And I wish I would have done it a lot sooner. And I wish I could have done things different. But I lost a lot of sleep when I was younger. I did. I really lost a lot of sleep because I knew I had done something that I probably shouldn't have done. But the more I got educated and the better I was from older experienced guys and the guys that invented this stuff. When you go to some of these certifications and you hear the science behind it, you're like, wow, I hated science class. This is interesting as hell because now I work with it every day.
Yes, that's exactly
I like
it.
knowing this now. Before, I didn't care what we were doing because I wasn't going to build it. But now that you built it and now I'm playing with it, yes, I like to hear that.
Yep.
And now I sleep great. I have no problems. And if I lose a job, I feel bad for that guy that did it wrong. I'm like, well, that sucks. And I let them know, keep my card. So when you need it repaired or fixed or when something's wrong, and maybe it doesn't, but I would say about half the time I really get those callbacks. And then I try to be a good person and not overcharge, but I can't say that I always don't go, look, this would have been easier. Now I've got to take all this up and I've got to redo this and I've got to you've added more work to my job. So I am going to be higher than my original bid, even though I may be doing a less of an area. Maybe I'm not redoing the whole job. I'm just doing a certain amount, but I am. And you won't fit in when I'm busy. Yeah, it's going to cost you a little bit.
Yep.
Just in the hopes that people will catch on. If I do this right the first time, it won't happen. And I'm all about installer. I want to teach every installer. I want everyone as good as me. And I'm like you. There's plenty of work out there for all of us. Or we can work together. I love going on. I learn stuff from everybody every time I go on something, or I want to know that I can teach someone, something. Just one little thing, even if it's just customer service. Keep that house clean. Don't sit down and have eggs and bacon with Mrs. Smith because she offers it to you. She's just being nice. Get there and do your job.
I'm taking the eggs and bacon, bro. I'm sorry. But I'm gonna clean. I'm gonna clean up after myself. I'm gonna be respectful. I'm gonna go bust my butt afterwards. But I'm taking the eggs and bacon,
which is great. And I guess it's depending on how you do it. I just know so many of these guys that they let Mrs. Smith know they're hungry in the morning. Go ahead and whip up something. Now, if it's already made, absolutely, and I'll take a cup of coffee.
Oh, don't go asking. Yeah, don't go asking if it's offered.
Yeah, but there's so many guys that'll, complain about, well, you haven't eaten because you don't know how to manage your money, or you're not making enough because you cut and throw it. There's just so much to this trade that I wish guys would change. Older, younger, everyone. And I think younger guys could come in this greatly if stores would employ them, because I would love it being paid $35 an hour. You supplied me with a rig, and now you gave me a guy. Now, if I have to supply my own shit and I got to teach this guy, he's got to learn faster. I need more out of him than if you're paying him. Now I can take my time and I can really teach him.
Well, it's going to work out so hard. It's going to work out the same way either way, right? You're either going to charge more and be able to train him right on your time because you're charging enough, or the store's going to be charging enough. But again, I think this comes down to we have to take very seriously where we want this industry to go. And everyone wants to complain about it, but nobody wants to step up to change it. And I think going in-house is going to be a big way to change this, let alone this newer generation wants guarantees. They want healthcare. They want to be able to be guaranteed time off. They want a guaranteed kind of salary. They want to know what it takes to grow and move forward within a company. They want to be a part of something.
It took me till I was 50 to know I wanted all that shit. I'm 50 and I barely realized. I wish I would have realized it at 24. That would have been amazing. And I don't blame them. That is what we need, you know?
There's always going to be people that want to do it themselves, right? But I think the situation we're in now, there's a lot of people that have been told they should do it themselves, and they sure as hell should not be. And they're not doing it well. They're not going and getting the education. They're not being held to standards. And again, if there were more employees, more people would get held to standards. We would have to force the education upon them, and they're either going to get on board or they're going to be kicked out. And they're not going to, if they want to go do it on their own, again, let them, because it's probably not going to end up well. And they're going to find that they can't get work anymore very, very quickly. Whereas people that are doing it well will continue to succeed. And if they want to go out on their own, then they can, let's point them in the right direction. Let's recommend some books. Let's point them in the direction of this podcast. Let's have our own conversations with them. I don't think you're going to be losing much by helping build the industry up in a positive manner, as opposed to whatever this current system is, it's not working. And it's
and I think a lot of good installers too, I see a lot of stuff online, and the first thing they want to do when they see a video of a guy doing something wrong, instead of critiquing it or adding advice, it's attack. It's, you suck, get out of here. What's wrong with you? Maybe they don't know better. Now, when they've posted 6 videos, you've gave them the same advice, and they're laughing at you going, yeah, this is how I do it. I'm making the money. I turn and burn. Fine, move on. But I have seen a lot of comments that don't need to be so negative in this industry.
Oh, yeah.
You get more, out of trying to help someone and see maybe they just didn't know. Maybe that's really what they thought was right. And someone needs to tell them, look, what you're doing is completely wrong. Especially with the carpet videos. They break my heart, because I'm a rugger. I started out laying carpet, went to vinyl, and then my Pergo certification is 312. So I was the 312th person to get certified to lay Pergo. And that's back when we had the glue and the straps. I still got my green Pergo box. I think there's still a bottle of glue in there from back then. And so I've got to watch all these floors progress and LVPs and the vinyl change, which I think is amazing what they're doing with vinyl now. It's so much easier than it used to be back in the old days. But these guys with carpet is the way they're just hacking it in. I hope that they just don't realize. And I ask a lot of guys, do you know what a pick line is? Do you know what the pick line is on the backing of the carpet? No. Pick line is the thread count on the backing of the carpet. And I know guys that have installed carpet for 20 years, and they'll be like, I've never heard that term. Never had heard it. And I'm like, okay, so the little squares on the back of the carpet, it's like a net. So when you stretch it, you're trying to get those squares perfectly stretched and even, is the basis of it. I mean, it gets a little bit more than that, but that's probably the easiest way to explain it. So when these guys are walking in and they're just kicking stuff, or they're not stretching right, that carpet doesn't get tight to where it stands up so these fibers wear correctly. So carpet really gets wore out fast, and then it starts getting loose and bubbles. And as that happens, it hasn't had that stretch. That stretch basically does this. It makes them yarns stand up and perform. When yarns can't stand up and perform, they're laying down. So you're mashing them, you're getting it. But then the oils from your skin and different things, if you're not maintaining it right, it just sits and does this. So a carpet that should be lasting 20-something years, you've just taken 10 years off the life of it, if not more, especially if they're using the wrong vacuum, that type of stuff. And that's something more that, salespeople and manufacturers should be talking about. But I think an installer should always kind of know, hey, is there a vacuum I should recommend, or should I tell this customer this? Because I've just spent all day laying this
Mm-hmm.
carpet. I want her to be happy forever. I want her to tell her whole family. Shouldn't I know a little bit about what I've just done and tell her about vacuuming, maintenance,
Yes,
things you should use on it? Because if she goes to Walmart and buys a bunch of cheap products, she's going to ruin that carpet.
for sure. I mean, well,
Now,
how
is
many?
she going to blame the carpet or you?
You're getting the blame for sure. But how many do these folks, guys or gals, know about the Carpet and Rug Institute? You know, it's this, what is it? CRI 106,
Yep.
10, whatever the book is, right? I know enough to know that the book exists. There are like documented standards or guidelines, whatever guidelines for carpet, right? Or we can go with the National Wood Flooring Association guidelines on installation.
Tile has the same
we
thing.
we have
Everything.
we have the TCNA and for tile. But what I mean, there's nothing for LVP yet. Laminate doesn't really have anything, but it follows wood closely enough that they generally pull from those guidelines anyways. There is an alpha, but you don't hear much out of them anymore. It's the North American Laminate Flooring Association, I believe.
Yeah.
They're still around, but you don't hear much out of them. I think they did an inspection class at Surfaces like 2 years ago, but I haven't seen any of their they had a installer certification at one point, and I haven't seen anything out of that. But there's nothing for the LVP industry yet. Like, we're not pulling really from any of the resilient documentation, and I'm sure there's guidelines made by the resilient people out there somewhere. But how many of the installers actually know these things exist? And then if you present them to them, they fight it. And a lot of it has to do with, personally, like you said, you're, 50. I'm 41, and I've only been doing this 8 years. But the average age, when you look at, I think Hardwood Floors Magazine does their annual thing, or Wood Floor Business, one of the two. Like, the average age of a sand and finish guy is 51. You're close to retirement. Like, what do you care about changing it anymore at this point? Like, a lot of these folks aren't necessarily invested to where they're like, I'm going to stay up to date. Like, they're punched out, they're checked out, and they're just clocking it. They're just clocking in and clocking out to be able to like get the last few years out of their career, make their money, and move on. And that's one of the giant problems that I see is they don't even care enough to get educated anymore. And so, sure, the information exists, but they're just uninterested. And then you have new people coming in, and they're not even being exposed to this stuff. And so, again, the standard has to be completely changed and set for a new generation. And we've got to set the standards really high. There's no reason that we shouldn't.
You would like to think that 100% because these products are not cheap. I mean, some of them are. You can go to places and they are very inexpensive, and that's fine. If you're looking to put a Band-Aid on a house and flip it and sell it, and you're okay with that, I get that to a degree. But some people are going back to, especially with the housing prices now going up where they're at, you're not in that house for 5 years anymore and then moving up. That's changing because the houses have got too expensive or too limited. That where are you going to move to? And so it needs to go back to, we're investing in this home. We're going to get the good product, and we're going to get the good install that's going to last more than 5 years.
Well, and then you can't even get a good install because you're paying top dollar for uneducated people to do it. And I don't expect, here's the problem, is the consumer is hiring you. And it is a given that you are a professional within your claimed field. So when you go and you start trying to sell and you just assume that, I'm a professional and so that's part of my price and why I'm expensive. No. That doesn't really count for anything. I'm sorry. I don't care.
No, just because you had some business cards made, don't make you the best.
But what I'm saying is like the client assumes you're a professional, you're educated, you're up to date on what it actually takes to do it. That's an assumption by them, and it's wrong. But that's what you're up against, is they assume anyone walking into their house is a professional, and it is on you to provide the burden of proof that you are actually a true professional and the other people walking in are not. And when you go and you start educating your Mrs. Smith, the next she's going to talk to her Mrs. Smith friends, the Mrs. Jones and Mrs. Robinson, and she's going to say, I learned this and that and the other thing. And then they're going to look into that product, and they're going to, if you don't get a referral, which you screwed something up if you're not getting the referral, but if they go and hire people, like, they're going to have questions to ask because you were able to educate somebody and make this better for all of us. But yeah, there's too many uneducated people that present themselves as professionals and they're not. And it's on us. Put stuff on your website. You can easily, like, what are the most 10 or 20 asked questions you get about different products and how they should be installed or what they should do, and put that stuff on your website. It's only going to make you look better.
And if I was a store owner, I would completely, I would do this to everyone. And I've talked to a couple to see if they would do it, and they're too afraid. But I would, as a store owner, I would have a live video feed of Orcon used to make a really good video. I'd probably make my own, but of actually watching how power stretching works. Because so the box stores, they have a questionnaire that the customer fills out afterwards and says, did they power stretch? Most customers think that's when they pull their electric tacker out, which shouldn't be happening anyways, then start running staples. Because a power stretcher, when you hear the word, you think it's plugged in to a wall. So they plugged in the seamer, they plugged in some things, and 90% of them will check yes, even though a power stretcher was not used, because they don't know. I would literally promote that, and I would show the tools, like I would have them on display.
Sure.
This is not what's used, this is what's used, and this is how it should be used. And if my guys aren't using it, I want you to know. But this is why I'm charging more than Jack's down the street, is because my guys are going to use this. And this is why it's so important that they use it and stretch it right in the quality of your carpet. And why they don't do that, it has shocked me for years. But I learned how to use one. That's how we started out. I didn't ever know any different. My whole 30 years, a knee kicker was to do stairs and move carpet around to adjust it in seams. You didn't kick anything in. Now, my knees are bad, and that's why I don't install 100% full-time anymore. But that was also because I rodeoed when I was younger, and I wrestled. My knees were bad going into this industry and getting up, not because of using a knee kicker. I would have been out of this 15 to 20 years ago had I only strictly knee kicked. I would be done.
I believe it.
And I don't see why. And I know guys say they've kicked for 52 years and they can kick as hard as I stretch. You can't. Nope. Maybe you didn't make it that long in this industry, but there is no way you can kick as hard as I can power stretch.
No way.
And it is needed, and they don't see the value in why it's needed. And I mean, I've worked with all types of guys, and I know guys that were mediocre installers, but they were professional. They kept houses clean, so they get away with it forever. But they're still not doing a real good customer service in the long run.
No, I would put up videos on how to properly install. I'd give away the case of the kingdom, because again, I'm the guy that I think a person that's going to DIY a project is never your client to begin with. But if you can help them be successful, they'll go tell their non-DIY friends about you. And other people, they're going to look at it and they're going to say, oh, screw that. I'm not dealing with that. I'll just pay the money. But at least now I know what I'm looking for. Because you're right. What average homeowner, I didn't know what a power stretcher was until I started paying attention to this industry and learning a little something about carpet. I didn't know. I would have no idea. What are you asking me?
And it's useless for any other thing. Other tools that we use when we're doing hard surface installs, that's all common tools that a lot of people would have anyways. It makes sense. You'd have a hammer. You'd have some, but, tapping blocks a little out of it. But really, the rest of the tools are... But a carpet stretcher, a seam iron, They
Correct.
serve no other purpose, on any job
Yep.
site. You would never use one.
But I mean, I would make a video about how the concrete needs to be flat. Make one about how to properly
Yes.
undercut doors.
Again,
Make one about how to actually install stairs tight. You could make one about how to install transition pieces and where and why. How to make complicated cuts. How to measure rooms properly, or what. Make them
and
all. Make
transitions is a
them
big
all.
thing where a guy's really got to know how to think on his own, because you got to modify a lot of these transitions that are made by manufacturers now. VersaTrim does an amazing job, but a lot of stuff that comes with the product, it's not going to really work in a lot of homeowners' houses. There's a lot of variables. And as a salesperson, that's hard for them to know that. Again, that's why I would go back. As a salesperson, if I never installed, why would I not have the installer go out there? Because then I don't have to worry about it. If he calls for the wrong transition, that's on him, not me.
Yeah.
And then we would modify it. We would do what we needed to do. We'd go get one. I'm I skin them and make my own a lot for customers, because nothing, you get a laminate floor or an LVP, and that transition matches 6 different colored products, from that line.
Yeah.
And it looks terrible because you've got it up against that one plank that it doesn't go with,
Yes.
And so then you got to figure it out. And that's one thing I do like about the LVP, is how we can make our own transitions. But I've always done my own, you got to be creative that way. You got to, and you learn that. You just don't know it. You've got to be able to think, and you've got to have an older guy that had taught you or showed you. A lot of that value comes in from that.
Well, that you just got to be, a lot of what I've learned was me just being, I was just inquisitive. Like, I was just, why, how, when, where, like,
yeah.
I just wanted to ask the questions, and not enough people, again, like, they want to clock in, they want to clock out, they want to just show up. I'm just an installer. I'm not anything special. Man, you are making masterpieces out there, even if you're doing apartment carpet. Like, you are installing something that makes that space beautiful and changes people's lives. I don't care if that's not how you feel about it. I'm sorry, but what you're doing is special, and you need to take pride in it.
We should know that, because people want us to come in before the doors and windows are up. Can you come do the flooring? Because the minute that flooring's done, that house is done. Now I can see my vision. Now I can see my furniture with it better. And you're like, no, you don't have doors and windows.
Yeah.
The weather's getting to it. And they're like, really? You don't think you can? No, I know I can't. But people, that's the finished and end product. And what sucks is we're at the end where everybody else has spent their money. So now their budget's getting tighter. And that's a struggle for flooring installers too. And I get that with stores and leads, but you got to make them realize this is your big investment. This is as big as your kitchen design.
Yes.
We're right up there. We are. Your light fixtures don't cost a quarter of what that floor does that sits underneath the dining room table. You got to make Mr. Smith see it.
I've had that conversation with many a client. I'm like, look, a lot of people think flooring's like the easy thing. I was like, it is a major home remodel, and here's the thing. You can cheap out on it, but let's talk about how much you use your floor. You take it for granted. You think it's just there, but let's actually look at it. You are walking on it all day, every day. How often do you actually use your cabinet? Do you really need the high-end, top-of-the-line, $8,000 a unit cabinet? Or can you get the $500 cabinet because it looks exactly the same, made out of cheaper materials? Why don't we put the money in the floor, the thing that gets abused? You're going to spend a ton of money on paint? Do you touch your walls? No? Cool. I don't either. My kids do, and that's a whole different conversation, but I'm not touching the walls. I'm not using them. Like, what am I spending a ton of money on paint for? Put the money in the floor.
Hurt my paint near as much as my older two. I would have killed them, but he's got a hoverboard. Goes and rides it on the sidewalk. Comes in now, rides it on the floor. I would have killed my older two for that. But now I've gotten older. I'm relaxed. And I know what floor I have in my house, and I don't care. And he helped me put it in. I made him help.
Okay.
And so now I tell him all the time, you damage this, you're cutting that plank out and you're replacing it. He's 10. I'm going to walk him through it, but I'm waiting for the day that I can do it and go, oh, your mom's so mad. guess what? Now we have to fix this.
Yes.
But that's the nice thing of it. But my other kids, oh, they'd have been in so much trouble because back then I had carpet throughout the house, and you
Yeah.
didn't, that was
It
hard
wouldn't
for
even
me
have
to
worked.
clean and stuff. Yeah,
It's still, it's
now,
just a matter of people need to be educated. But where are you as the professional telling them how many? There's not enough owner operator installers out there or retail salespeople going out and saying, no, we need more money. It's there's too many people that are just compromising and being like, nope, all right, that's your budget, like we'll find a way to make it work, or we're gonna figure it out for this price. Don't figure it out for that price. The cost is the cost. And there's another issue, right? If you don't know what it costs you to run your business, this is where go to flooracademypod.com/files, get the business budgeting spreadsheet. And as an owner operator, or if you only have an employee or two, you can really figure out what it's going to cost you to run your business per day to be profitable to the level that you want to be profitable at. And
for years to come too.
That's not,
that's the thing. They got to look at that. It's not tomorrow. Yeah. It's in 5 years. Where am I going to be?
Correct.
And that's what they need to know.
Well, it comes down to it asks you how much your truck is. How many installers do you know need a new truck but can't figure out how they're going to pay for it? It's a business expense. The business should pay for it, which means every day you drive that truck, you need to be charging to be able to pay for that truck. And not the truck you have, the truck you're going to have in 5 years when your current truck breaks down. And that's going to come out to $20 or $30 a day or whatever it is, depending on how extravagant of a truck you want. And that money needs to get set aside into a bank account so that in 5 years, you don't have any worries about where's the truck coming from. You just have money ready to go. Oh, it's time to replace the truck. Let's go to the store and buy one. Cool. But it's a personal vehicle for a lot of them, and they struggle to come up with the money. And I'm like, what are you doing? Why is it a struggle for you to be able to afford a vehicle to go back and forth to work? And I get it. We all got to start somewhere. I understand that. I started with beaters, and it was ugly and disgusting. And nobody should have hired me with what I was pulling up in, but I started saving the money to be able to buy what I wanted. And then once I got that, there was still money being charged. I didn't stop charging extra money. I was charging the same amount so that I would have money the next time I needed a vehicle, the next time I needed to buy a trailer, the next time I needed to replace that tool. I'm charging for all of it. It's not about being able to pay your bills today. I'm worried about being able to pay my bills in 6 months. I'm worried about being able to get knee surgery in 30 years. I can't go back.
Replacements.
Exactly. I can't. What are you going to do? Are you seriously going to go through your CRM that you probably don't have and you're going to dig out all your old estimate notebooks and start calling all the phone numbers and being like, hey, Mrs. Smith, I installed your floor 20 years ago, but I need knee surgery now. Can I get an extra $200?
Yeah, that ain't gonna happen.
No, you better ask for that $200 now. Let alone it's not $200; it's probably $1,000. So you better find a way to get $200 a day on that 5-day project.
Well, and that's the thing. This industry is so hard on your body. I've had five knee surgeries, scopes. And they clean it up every time. And the last time, my doctor just like, look, you're bone on bone. At 55, 60, you're looking at new knees. I hadn't planned for that. I had nothing. I'm like, well, what am I going to do? But, my wife's job better get some insurance going. And then I'm telling her, hey, your insurance is going to have to buy me new knees. Well, why shouldn't mine? Why shouldn't I have had that investment? And I, unfortunately now it's too late for me, but I'd like to be able to help the younger guys out or, set a standard for guys. And when I say younger, I don't even mean in their 20s. I mean, even the guys in their 30s and 40s, me being 50. It's like you still got more time than I thought about when I did it. But I invested a lot. I maxed out some credit cards at one point to go to some CFI classes. I paid to the world of floor covering, and I got a scholarship to go become an inspector that paid for half my class. There's things out there, and you brought that up to me when I was like, well, it's just not available. I just kind of had that attitude. And I loved it that day when you're like, well, now wait, is it not out there? Because you have it. Well, shit, you were right. I was just looking at it negative that day, because it is out there. But how
There's
do we
plenty of
make
training.
it more available? And it's stuff like this. If guys are watching this, they need to know. They can reach out to you. They can reach out to me. There's websites. There's things we can go into your local store. Fine. If you are tied into this store and you want to feel loyal to them, then ask them. Hey, bring in the Ardex guy. Bring in the Mape guy. Who's doing this? You know, who you're buying this stuff from someone. Where's my
Hmm.
training for it? If they want us to use their product and you want me to do this, you know, Schluter offers all these great trainings for
Oh
free.
yeah.
They'll come do one shower with you for free. And guys need to know that that's out there, and why these companies aren't paying more of us or letting more of us know is where I scratch my head, because I know
Correct.
about it because I looked, I tried. Some guys don't maybe have that time, and maybe they are just too lazy. I don't know. Maybe
They're
it's a
not, maybe
double-edged
they're not
sword.
interested, but if you offer it or you put it out there, who's going to start taking advantage of it, right? So as a retail store owner, if you have all subcontractors, no, you can't force anybody
Right.
to show up to a training. I get that. But what you can do is you can go talk to the other store owners in your area, and you can say, hey, I'm going to have the Ardax guy out, or I'm going to have the Mapei guy out, or I'm going to have the Utsen guy out, or the Mohawk rep, or I don't care who comes. Have somebody come out, right?
You
And
know,
you
and
can
I hate to
schedule it
be
for an
this
hour
guy.
before normal start time. They'll probably even, the person that comes out will probably provide the breakfast burritos. And if you get 3 or 4 stores to like pool all their people in, and you each take turns hosting things, voila. I don't want my people to go to another store.
Well,
Why not?
and I
Do you
hate
want
to
them to
be
get
this guy,
educated,
but
or do you want to like
I'm in.
what? God, what are you afraid of? They're going to get
I'm going
poached.
to give the work to the guy that came to that training. That's who I'm going to work. Is that
Mm-hmm.
subcontractor that took the time of day to come to this training. Now I know I want him on that next job.
Hell yeah.
Because then if he doesn't follow that, I can be like, hey, remember at that class? We seen this. We heard this. I know it. I'm not an installer. I own the store. My salesperson knows this. You came to that class. I guarantee that won't happen. It'll be the guy you didn't have come to that class, and you let them know. And I hate that, but it might be what you have to do as a store owner, as a salesperson. Be like, look, you'll come to this training, or I'm not going to have you do this carpet job. I'm not going to have you go do this laminate repair. I'm not going to do this if you're not going to use a cool glide. I'm not
Yeah.
going to. You could do that stuff, even though without, you don't want to force them, because I don't want guys to always change how they're doing installs. But
Mm-hmm.
you got to be open. You got to know that there's another way than your way.
Well,
Maybe a different scenario calls for one. Like with seaming carpet, there's a time and place that I will only use my cool glide. There's other times where I seam up the old way. There's
mm-hmm.
still stairs that I'll go ahead and hand sew,
Nice.
but there's other times I'll
Mm-hmm.
just use the stapler. You know,
Well,
it
and
just varies.
I think something else to this is, look, a lot of, no retailer should be setting the rate. Okay. And
No,
you,
not at
legally
all.
you can't. As a subcontractor, I'm supposed to tell you my rate and we negotiate, right? And so every single installer in your shop shouldn't have the same rate. One, they provide different qualities, that there should be
And
some
that
kind of a
can be on
difference.
every job. Every installer
But
should know that can be on every job.
yes,
It don't have to be a set standard.
so, but if you start providing trainings, and some of these folks are getting educated, even if you want to stay with the subcontractor model, shouldn't the ones that are getting education be paid just a little bit more? Like, let's incentivize learning. So, and then come up with standards, right? You need to go out, you need to have somebody stop by and check up on them and make sure that whatever standards they're learning to use through these trainings, they're actually employing on the projects that they're working on, so that they can earn that little extra bonus, right? Maybe it's a quarter a yard more, maybe it's 10 cents more a square foot on hard surface products. I don't know what it looks like. That's for you to determine with your business model. But a lot of the beef that folks have with getting certified is, I'm not going to get paid anymore. So you want installers to do it right. Again, you expect professionalism. That's a given, right? I get that. You expect them to know how to do it. They don't. So now make it worth their while to go get it until the industry changes.
Well,
And
and
then you can
it
find a
takes away
different way
that
to incentivize
90%
it.
of the problem. You're
Yes.
taking away that problem you're always complaining about. And when I did consulting, my biggest thing with consulting was 2 days with the sales staff, 2 days with the installers, and 1 day with them doing this. Because then that way, when the salesman does something and something happens out on an install, you
Mm-hmm.
don't always want that installer running their mouth to Mrs. Smith. Sometimes you need to keep it zipped, and you got to call the store first and involve them. That's a courtesy thing, especially if the store has done something. Back them up a little and let them know, and then remind them, hey, remember during that training, remember you were at that certification, I was there, we were all standing there. This was the scenario they were talking about. This is what it's going to take me to do it. How are we going to do this?
Yeah.
And then everybody can come up with a plan, and then you maybe involve Mrs. Smith if it's going to take more time, and maybe you don't. You just do it, and it gets done, and she's happy at the end of the day. And that's the thing is, salesmen and installers too are on two different pages, because the salespeople a lot of times have no experience installing, which isn't their fault. I don't think every salesperson needs to. Some people just have a salesman personality, and you want them doing that because they're selling the jobs you're doing. But you want them to sell it correctly with the right expectations. And how do they do that? By getting the same trainings you're getting, and by you working with them. So it's that combo of working together and us being on the same
Mm-hmm.
page, from the store owner to the salesman to the warehouse guy to the installer that's the last guy and the most important guy to me out on any job.
It's all of them, but you're also involving the manufacturers at that point, right? Again, there's three parts to this industry. There's the manufacturers, there's the retailers, there's the installers. We all got to get together, and we all got to work together to succeed. This is not a one size fits all kind of thing, or the installers are going to solve it. It's going to take all of us. Now, granted, I think the installers have to look out for themselves within this, and we need to put in more effort at this point, and we need to look out for ourselves, but we got to bring everybody to the table, and I don't see that happening.
Yeah.
I want to look, we can obviously, we've been going like an hour and a half. We could do this all night.
Right.
I'm going to stop us. So is there anything we didn't hit on that we should have hit on that you can think of?
I'm sure there's 100 things. But I think if you keep doing these, I would be glad to come back and get on a few more at any time, anything like that.
Yeah, no,
I'm sure there'll be things come up. We'll let's just stay in touch, and
definitely
let's keep doing these. You keep doing them with other people, other guests. I think this is a great thing. This is what the industry needs. And I would be surprised if 75% of us don't believe that. There's always going to be that percentage that thinks this is overkill and that it's not that big a deal. All we're doing is rolling out a piece of carpet or putting down a piece of laminate. But no, I think you're in the right path, and I love what you're doing. And I love a lot of the guys out here in the industry doing it.
There's a lot of really cool stuff happening. I'm excited to see where we go. Like, are we in a great place right now? No, we're not. But I am excited for the future. I do see some cool stuff happening that I think is going to make a big difference over the next decade. And it'll be really cool to see it get rolled out and how that's all going to come together.
We should try to plan one here in a couple months, because at that point I'll be ready to talk about a new product that's coming out by a major manufacturer that is kind of an LVP hybrid. They're not knowing that they want to call it that yet. They actually was like shocked when I said it the other day when they showed it to us. But it's going to be pretty impressive, and it's going to be probably one of the most stable floors we've seen in this industry. So I'll know more about that in a couple months.
I think I know I saw somebody asking about a product, and I know it's been rolled out into a few markets from one of the majors.
Yep.
Okay. It's funny. It came from a homeowner group on Facebook. They posted it in there. Like anybody,
4,000 square feet of it. So
okay, interesting. All right. Sorry, folks. That was a little much. I apologize. Thank you, Robert, for your time. I very much appreciate it. Let's see. We got a couple of things to close this one out. Listeners, you know what time it is. It's nearing January, and January 24th through 26th, you can go to the International Surfaces event in Las Vegas as a Floor Academy listener. You can get a free exhibition pass by using the code Kyle when you sign up. Seriously. Everyone's going to be asking what the code is in a couple of months. I know it. It's just my name. All you got to remember is KYLE. You're going to get that free exhibition pass. And so whether you're an installer, retailer, distributor, or serve in another capacity within our industry, attending TICE is a solid resource to expand your knowledge and networking base. That's why I love going. I get to go see all my friends. I get to make new friends. I get to have amazing conversations like this in person, which is super duper rewarding. Not that I don't enjoy doing it in this format that we do it here, but I always love talking with people in person, building relationships. The other part that's great about TICE is you can also learn about the newest and industry-leading products coming to market. Stay up to date with the International Surfaces event page on Facebook or online at intlsurfaceevent.com. You know the grind, the dust, the rain, the cold. We do too. We're IQ Power Tools, born from the sweat and grit of two masons who knew there had to be a better way. We're not just making tools, we're elevating the whole damn game. From our hands to yours, our story is your story. So let's cut the dust, not the ambition. Can't wait to meet you where it all happens, the job site. For more information on IQ Power Tools and their products, check out the link in the show notes. Don't forget to visit flooracademypod.com. Check out the file section. Check out what we got going on with our mastermind groups. I would love to tell you about those and help you get in a group where you can actively be held accountable and have an amazing network of individuals that are vetted and actively involved in growing their businesses. And all of you working together becomes a beautiful thing. There's a lot of synergy that happens. And the people that are joining these groups are, like I said, they're super motivated to make a difference in their business. They're not punching in when they come. There's a lot of time invested into these groups, and big things are changing within their businesses. You can help support the show over at patreon.com/Floor Academy. Even $5 a month goes a long way in helping it to continue to happen. Make sure you go in the show notes, check out the links for the sponsors, give them a click, and leave a review. If you are putting a review, I will go check if I have any more. I will read your review, and they help the show rank higher so that more people can find it on the podcast platforms. So help me out, be my little marketing team, and leave a review. Here's the thing. I know you're asking all your clients for reviews and you get super disappointed when you don't get them. Man, come on. Do me the favor. Go leave the review, would you? Like, you know I need it because you're asking for them too. So just help me out, and then maybe Mrs. Smith is going to, you're going to get some good karma, and Mrs. Smith is going to get you that review, and it'll just come full circle. All right, folks, that's all we got for this week. So tune in again next week.